It's day 89. That means it's almost 3 months since I left my home in Basingstoke and came over here 30, 40 miles away in Staines to make use of the fact that my nephew said I could use his flat to isolate. And so I've called it a holiday just to save calling it isolation. But really, I came here just to recap again. There is a purpose to me recapping. But I came over here because my immune system is weak after my stem cell transplant last year. It's still weak. It means that I'm in that shielding category where they're advising to stay indoors and stay away from everybody else in the household. Use a separate bed, use a separate bathroom, don't be in the same room as anybody else, wipe everything down, wash everything. And that just wasn't realistic at home. There's six of us living in our four-bedroom house. That basically means that I would basically have to stay in one room all day for 3 months, and that just wasn't realistic. And if I was going to go into a room with anybody else, three of the people in my household work in supermarkets and see hundreds of people every day. So, fortunately, they haven't had any symptoms of COVID-19. Doesn't mean they haven't had it asymptomatically. So everyone acknowledges really that it was the right thing to do for me to isolate over here while the peak was happening and the incidence of the disease was fairly widespread. And in two ways, things haven't really changed very much. It's day 89, and I went to Southampton Hospital the other day for a clinic appointment. I haven't seen them for 4 months almost, and so they did some blood tests. So I should find out in the next week or so, has my immune system improved or not? But actually, I can't get too excited about that because they also said that if it does show some sign of improvement, then they would need another reading in 2 or 3 months' time to show it's on the right trend, that they can be confident I'm going in the right direction. So one reading's not enough to lead to any restrictions being lifted. So I'm not heading towards any of my restrictions being lifted in the short term. So another few months at least of all those restrictions I've been used to, staying away from people, no public places, etc., etc. From another point of view, from the looking at the epidemic, yes, we've squashed the curve, but like everyone else, I didn't really realize in mid-March or early April that after we'd squashed the curve, we'd still have many months of managing the virus to go. I didn't realize that the shielding would have to go on for so long. And actually, looking at it now, with the restrictions that was, the care that we're having to take over just releasing normal social distancing rules, for the shielded population, I can see that shielding having to last for a lot more months. And I know that they say in the next week they'll be updating the guidance for people like me. But in reality, for the rest of the year and maybe into next year, I'm still going to have to be careful, and there's still going to be specific shielding advice applying to me. So, from both these points of view, Heidi and I were looking at this and thinking, well, if nothing's changing from both points of view, then I could, if we continue to take the same line of isolating me here, then I could be away from home for many more months. And that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. I'm missing people at home enough as it is, but to think of another 2, 3, 4 months that would just be insane. So next week, sometime, I will be moving back home. We've made that decision, and really, it's kind of I am a little bit nervous about it, um, and that's for two very different reasons, really. So, firstly, I'm a bit nervous because that's a long period of time I've been away, and um, people have got used to life without me being around on the ground, if you like. And that's not just me being depressive. Um, I went away for 6 weeks at the beginning of last year to hospital. I came back and it was all fine. I went away for 6 weeks, even though I didn't know at the time that it would be that long. In the summer last year, when I had infections and I had to stay in hospital, and I came back and it was fine. The difference this time is that so much has changed in business as usual that it's not just as easy as going back and slotting straight back in, because it's not like there's a normality to slot back into. We're all going to have to create a new normal. So that's what makes it a bit more stressful. So, my eldest is working at home permanently now. He's working at the desk I would normally work at. Um, so my business is now taken off because I've been able to spend more time in it in the peace and quiet of the flat. Um, and I now have more commitments to the work going forward. So do I continue to work off the side of the kitchen table, or with the laptop on my lap in my bed? It doesn't feel very businesslike. But that there's that, and my daughter's having college at home. Um, and that's not going to change in the next few months. The fact that people can't go out as much and see their friends, you can go outdoors and see them, but it's still quite restrictive. So, the kids aren't seeing their friends as much. So that means they're in the house more. So the house is actually busier than when I left it. And so how am I going to fit back in? And I can't follow the restrictions that I'm still being told are advisable. I can't stay in one room. I can't keep out of the rooms that other people are occupying. I can't stay 2 meters away from everybody all the time. I can't not share a bed with my wife. I can't use a separate bathroom all the time. I'm going to forget to clean things after, people are going to forget to clean things after them. So the anti-bac wipes may be around the place, but, it's going to be difficult. Or maybe it won't be. Maybe it won't be as difficult as I think. But it's that's creating a bit of anxiety. The other thing is the infection risk. And I've never really been an anxious person around infection risk. But the way I've always been able to manage that and manage the anxiety around the awareness of the risk of infection is by following the doctor's advice as if they're rules. So rather than me deciding how much risk I want to take and then doing whatever I feel's right, I literally look at what the doctors say, and if they say boil all your water, even if it's bottled, don't have anything with raw eggs in it or unpeeled fruit, and stay out of public places, don't go to church, don't go to offices, don't go on public transport, I will just do everything they say. Because if I'm doing everything they say, then I'm doing everything that I can. And once I've done everything that I can, I don't need to worry about it. What will be, will be. And I have a faith that that will normally be enough. What's different this time is that I'm deliberately now being pragmatic and saying, I'm not going to follow the doctor's advice. I'm not going to be sleeping in a separate bed or staying in a different room or separating myself off. I am deliberately going to ignore social distancing within my household for my own sanity and the sanity of the family. Now I know that's the opposite of the case 3 months ago, where they were going insane with worry about passing stuff on to me. We're going to have to now say we can't do this any longer. We're going to have to tell ourselves not to worry because this is the way that we have to live. And that does make you a little bit anxious because you're having to make the decisions and assess the risk yourself, and you're never really confident that that's you're making the right decision. And I think it's just occurred to me that this is exactly the same as the reason for the anxiety in general society, because when we were in lockdown, it was really easy. You stayed at home. No need to worry about anything else. So long as you're staying at home and you're not seeing anybody else, you've cut out the risk. So there's no need to worry. And it's the same for me over the last 3 months. I haven't worried at all. How can a virus get in here? The door's closed. I'm the only one here. There's no one going to pass a virus on to me. And that's the same as everybody else. You do your social distancing and no need for anxiety. Now we're being told that we have to be pragmatic, we have to be practical and start getting back to some sense of normality slowly but surely. But it's that slowly but surely bit that is giving people the stress. It's the stay alert message, which people ridicule, but is absolutely the right message. But staying alert means that everybody has a different interpretation of what that means. How many times to wash your hands, how long to wash your hands, whether you use anti-bac wipes every time someone uses the toilet, or, whether you have friends around in the garden, whether you have two lots of friends in one day around in the garden, whether you allow them to go to the toilet. Do you use public transport? You rack your brains thinking, do I really need to use public transport? Could I walk? Could I, use a bike? All these decisions that you now have to make are making everyone anxious. And that anxiety and stress level is manifesting itself in casting judgment on people, basically, because there's some people who are more confident, who accuse other people of being too wimpy and or lazy and not being willing to get out and about and just being work shy, basically. And then there's other people who judge other people for being too laissez-faire. You should be a lot more careful. You should, you shouldn't be going out. We shouldn't be going back to school. You shouldn't be going to shops. You shouldn't be going on public transport. And the government's stupid for allowing the relaxation of the lockdown, and we're all very nervous. And everybody's different. Everybody has a different spin, a different assessment of the risk, and a different assessment of what we should do about the risk. And so we start judging each other. And if you get to media level, the journalists I have the least patience for in the whole world, because they tend to be the most hypocritical, sanctimonious, self-righteous bunch of people who are always looking for the people they can cast judgment on, the people they can stigmatize, for going to a beach, for goodness sake. Why would you ever want to go to a beach? It annoys me. But, so what I'm saying, rather than getting on my hobby horse, what I'm saying really is that anxiety is understandable and we should cut each other some slack. We all talk about mental health awareness. I think talking about mental health is actually a bad thing. I think we need to talk more specifically and say we're anxious, we're worried, some of us are depressed. Mental health sounds too general to me. But for those reasons, we need to be more understanding of each other, more encouraging of each other. We need to talk to one another. Those people who are worried, we need to reassure them. We need to reassure ourselves by just thinking objectively about the facts. And at the end of the day, realize that that anxiety is understandable and forgive ourselves for it. And to the extent that we can, just get on with it, which is what I'm planning to do when I get back home next week. Try and reintegrate as best possible, be understanding with the family and with myself for frustrations of reintegrating. Try not to think too much about the risk while staying alert, and get on with life. And as I always say, take one step at a time and try to keep smiling. And so I've gone on long enough in this video. It was really just to say I'm going home and all my thoughts about it. I will do another video actually thinking about it, because a little bit more light-hearted, I think, just to show you some of the things that I've been doing to occupy my time over the last 3 months, and then I can sign off on these holiday journals. How about that? So all the best to you all. Keep taking one step at a time and keep smiling, and I'll speak to you soon.